Welcome to ITV News Central. On our programme tonight, the man from Dudley and his partner denied their dream home because they're gay.
We were a bit upset, angry. You just don't expect it in 2022 to get that kind of reaction.
Also on the programme, the disability rights campaigner calling for roads and pavements to be improved in Hereford.
The Birmingham scientists leading the charge on recycling electric car batteries.
Have you cracked the new highway code? 1 in 3 people are unaware of the changes.
And when it comes to our Midlands weather story, we've got some great news for you. Brighter skies and sunny spells coming very soon. Join me later for more.
Good evening. A man from Dudley who's told he and his partner could not buy their dream home because they were gay said it's disappointing that such prejudice still exists.
The sellers, who are devout Christians, told the couple that they couldn't even view the house, let alone purchase it, and sent them passages from the Bible explaining how they didn't approve of 2 men in a relationship. Lucy Capassi reports.
Luke Whitehouse from Sedgley and Dudley is house hunting again, after he and his partner were denied the chance to view the home they'd hoped for because they're in a same-sex relationship. Luke and Lachlan Mantle, who's originally from Australia, have been together for 8 years and after being separated during the pandemic, decided the time was right to get on the property ladder.
We were always looking on Rightmove, flicking through houses, seeing what we'd like. And this house really just stood out for us. It was near Lachlan's brother, a beautiful view in the garden. And we thought, why don't we just start the process and actually go for a view? And it was actually our very first one.
They got a message from the sellers asking for more information about them. And then this. Dear Lachlan and Luke, we thank you for sharing your circumstances with us. Sorry if we seem intrusive, but we just want to make clear that we would be unwilling for 2 men in a partnership to view or buy our house, as it's contrary to the gracious teaching in God's word. They then referenced 2 Bible passages.
I initially laughed because I thought it was a joke. I was like, scrolling down thinking the joke's coming, and it never came. We were a bit upset, angry. You just don't expect it in 2022 to get that kind of reaction. Who they were going to sell their house to was always their choice. I don't think they needed to send that kind of arrogant message. It made me feel quite naive because I've said for the last few years, I don't think it's as big of an issue anymore. And I think it's really highlighted that actually it's still out there, it still exists. People do still have those feelings and they are willing to just discriminate against someone based on, in this case, sexual orientation. But, where do you draw the line as well? Would they have not let a single parent or an unmarried couple or someone of a different faith view that house either? I don't know.
Buying your first house with a partner should be the most exciting, happy adventure.
The couple's story has now made national headlines.
We've had so many messages from people since the story came out that have had same-sex couples that have had similar experiences from all over the world in situations like this.
It's so easy to brush it under the carpet as well and not say anything. We could have easily read it and put it down and forgot about it, but I think we felt like we needed to do something about it.
Part 4 of the Equality Act deals with the disposal of premises and makes it pretty clear that if you say that somebody can't buy your house because of their sexual orientation, that is unlawful, prohibited discrimination contrary to the Equality Act. So the legal position, to my mind, is really very straightforward.
Luke says it wasn't about taking legal action, but more raising awareness, especially as he works with schools educating young people about discrimination. ITV Central hasn't been able to get hold of the sellers of the house, but the original estate agent said it's no longer listing the property as it's against their values. Meanwhile, the couple say they'll take a couple of weeks' break to process what's happened before booking any more viewings. Lucy Capassi, ITV News.
A man has died following a house fire in Birmingham. Emergency services were called to Sladefield Road in Alum Rock on Saturday. The man in his 30s was rescued but has since died in hospital.
The Hong Kong Stock Exchange is to look into claims that its financial rules were not followed by the majority owners of Birmingham City Football Club. As well as a protest held before the match on Saturday, fans who are unhappy with the way the club is being run had been emailing the Stock Exchange alleging the owners, Birmingham Sports Holdings, bought a Spanish football club without informing its shareholders. Birmingham City have been contacted for comment.
A disability rights campaigner from Hereford says the state of the city's pavements is so bad that he fears someone with mobility issues will get injured or even killed. Cameron Wood says he recently got stuck in a pavement crack and had to be released by a passing motorist.
Well, he says Hereford is also lacking in drop curbs, which allow wheelchairs and scooters better access to shops. The council says it's agreed to meet him to discuss the issue, as Andy Bevan reports.
This is the view from Cameron Wood's electric wheelchair as he travels around Hereford. He says the state of the pavements is so bad he's often forced onto the road, and that throws up a second problem, a distinct lack, he says, of drop curbs to allow him to keep away from passing traffic.
You'll see from where we are today that this road is very inaccessible and it's an accident waiting to happen. So if Herefordshire Council do not act now, somebody's either going to get killed or injured.
And this morning outside Herefordshire Council's head offices, he pointed out an apparent inconsistency in its approach to wheelchair users.
As you can see, there's lovely, beautiful drop curbs outside their offices that people can access if they're in mobility scooters and wheelchairs. But when you come to further up Plough Lane, which is the road that we're stood next to, there's no drop curbs or very limited ones, and then the same again on Harrow Road where we are now.
Even this mobility shop selling scooters and wheelchairs has no drop curb outside. Owner Lucy Mills says the roads around her shop often carry large lorries, and today she threw out a challenge to councillors responsible for the city's roads.
They'd be welcome to try one of our scooters and try and go up the street, and maybe try it around the town in general and see, how they get on.
Herefordshire Council told us they were very sorry to hear of Cameron Wood's concerns about accessibility on the county's roads, and in a statement they added, "The safety of road users and pedestrians is our top priority, and maintaining the presence of curbs is a necessary part of this. However, we appreciate feedback from members of the public and work to ensure that our highways and footways are as accessible as possible for all."
Herefordshire's roads are an accident waiting to happen, and I don't believe that Herefordshire Council understand that it's an issue.
This afternoon, Herefordshire Council told ITV News it's now been in touch with Cameron Wood to arrange a meeting at which potential solutions to the problem will be discussed. Andy Bevan, ITV News.
And the ITV Evening News is just a few moments away. To see what's coming up, here's Lucrezia Millarini.
The Met U-turns and says it will investigate the Downing Street lockdown parties. Boris Johnson says he's willing to be interviewed by police but doesn't believe he's broken the law. Also ahead, dental surgeries across England could be open all hours. The plan to deal with a pandemic backlog. And we meet the Jamaican bobsleigh team training in Bath for a tilt at Olympic gold. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
A charity has lost instruments worth thousands of pounds and recording equipment after their van was stolen in Birmingham. The People's Orchestra say their white Fiat van containing the items was taken on Sunday evening after they recorded a piece for the Commonwealth Games. They're calling for its safe return as it's used to help vulnerable people.
If you've taken the van and you don't realise just how much of a devastation it is to our charity, please just leave it and phone in to the police. We need it back.
A new campaign has started today to help drivers understand how to stay safe on smart motorways where the hard shoulder is removed or used to provide an extra running lane. Earlier this month, plans for new smart motorways were paused by the government so they could review safety data. Mira Naran has been calling for more data on them after her son died in 2018 in a crash on the hard shoulder on the M6 in Birmingham.
The time has just gone 10 minutes past 6 and coming up on ITV News Central. Major changes to road rules as the highway code is updated.
And finally, we can say goodbye to the cloudy conditions and welcome some brighter skies. The question is, when will they be here? Join me later and I'll let you know.
People on an estate in Birmingham fighting to get their local park reopened will have their case heard in Parliament tonight. Bromford Park has been closed for 2 years, awaiting redevelopment work involving flood defences.
Well, the local MP, Liam Byrne, says he's seeking an apology for the delay from the Environment Agency, as well as compensation. Let's cross live now to our political correspondent, Alison Mackenzie. And Alison, tell us more about the background to this.
Yes, this local dispute brought right here to Parliament to be discussed tonight. It focuses on Bromford Estate in the north of Birmingham. A park has been shut down almost the whole of the pandemic, linked to redevelopment work. And it looks over the M6 linked to the River Tame. But it's the delay in getting that development work done that has angered local people. The park is shut, children can't play there. The flood defence is still not complete. On it goes. We spoke to concerned residents today who told us they've simply had enough. They want this matter sorted out.
I've got 2 grandchildren. I have to take them off the local estate to other areas for a local park. During the holiday, a few residents not happy. We've approached council, we haven't got a park and been fobbed off.
This place needs investment. You know, we're not against new houses being built, but I think we want to see, we've lost the doctors, surgery. We need investment in resources in the community facilities, parks, places, nature trails, places that the community can use and benefit everybody.
We've been called the forgotten estate before now, and we've been trying to get rid of that tag. And it's just, life's not all about the Commonwealth Games, right? And that's no disrespect, I love sport, but it's not all about the Commonwealth Games, and it seems to me like that they're throwing millions of pounds in one area to the detriment of all the other areas.
Something of a land tussle going on. We've spoken to Birmingham City Council and their view is that they're trying to regain access to the land, awaiting redevelopment. They want to open a section of the park by Easter, another section by the summer, but again it's all later on. But it's the Environment Agency and the sites of Liam Byrne. He says they need to take action far sooner.
The Bromford's not a wealthy place, but we've just been treated with complete disrespect, and I'm dragging the Minister to the Commons today to say we're just not having it. Their work has been delayed and delayed and delayed. They've taken out a play park right the way through lockdown in an estate with some of the worst health inequalities in the country, and we're just not having it. So we want an apology, we want compensation, and we want a promise the work is now going to be completed when they say it is.
Alison, we can see how much it means to the residents of this area. Now, what is the response from the Environment Agency?
Well, yes, we'll hear from a minister at the end of the debate tonight to Liam Byrne, but meanwhile he's relying on a written answer from the link to the Environment Agency, which says the Environment Agency has been working hard to improve the flood defences at Bromford and Castle Vale. The scheme is expected to be completed by the winter of 2022-23, so still some months away. Liam Byrne will be asking the minister, can that be brought forward sooner? We've seen that the people need the park, they deserve it. He says, get on with it.
Alison, thank you very much.
Now, 1 in 3 drivers is completely unaware of changes to the highway code, which come into force this weekend. It includes a new hierarchy of road users, with cyclists and pedestrians given the most priority over drivers of cars and goods vehicles.
That's attracted some controversy, but the Department for Transport claims the new rules are to help protect all those who use our roads. Nick Smith explains.
The Highway Code is the essential guide for best practice on roads across our region. Although in reality, the last time many motorists would have swatted up on its finer details may have been when taking their driving tests. The rules have been given an update this week. But it seems people we spoke to in Harborne in Birmingham are largely unaware of what they are.
I'm cycling every day, so change doesn't really come into it for me, but I suppose I haven't read anything in the paper about it or seen anything on the television, I think.
I would have thought they need to be legally enforceable. I think some people will take notice of them, but I think many people won't, and there needs to be some sort of enforceable element to them.
Us as pedestrians, we're quite safe. I feel quite safe. It's just like when the electric bikes and the scooters are on the pavements and they're behind you and they're quite fast. I think that needs sorting out. But the road, I feel quite safe crossing the roads and stuff like that.
The changes include a new hierarchy of road users, from pedestrians at the top to HGVs at the bottom. It means vehicles that can do the most harm now need to look after those above them in the list. For example, if a car and bike are travelling side by side, the greater responsibility is now with the driver of the car to ensure the safety of the cyclist. Safe passing distances have also been clarified. Drivers must give cyclists 1.5 metres when travelling under 30 miles an hour and 2 metres when going more than 30. Other new sections include guidance for drivers of electric cars on parking as close as possible to charging points to stop charging cable trip hazards. And it will now be an offence to take photos or videos, select a song or play games on your phone, even when stopped at a red light. One of the rules which has also caught many drivers' eyes includes giving crossing pedestrians priority when turning into junctions.
Now, if a pedestrian is waiting to cross that road, as a driver you should wait for them to cross the road even before you've turned into the junction. That's a fundamental shift in the way that we're going to be using our cars in our towns and cities, and that's a really vital thing drivers get their heads around.
Cyclists are in the bracket of road users who are most at risk, and figures show they are 15 times more likely to be killed or seriously injured than car drivers. Agata Blažević regularly cycles with her young children on the school run and isn't short of stories about near misses with motorists.
If it's a busy road, you can get a closed pass, for example, and it can get really scary. And it's especially stressful because I'm carrying 2 young children on my bike. I think that the new rules are actually indicating that you should be more aware of the road users who are more vulnerable.
I think this public awareness campaign is really important. As soon as everybody knows about these changes, it's going to make the environment much safer. And as we know, the public are much more likely to travel actively if they feel safe in this environment. So we'll see more people walking, more people cycling and getting out and moving, which would be great to see.
The newly updated highway code is to reflect that many of our roads, especially in town and city centres, are now truly shared spaces, where those who walk, pedal and drive all need to respect each other, so we can all safely make our way from A to B. Nick Smith, ITV News.
Well, meanwhile, the move to electric cars is a key part of plans to cut carbon emissions and tackle the climate crisis. But there are concerns over how the precious metals needed to make them are mined and how they can be disposed of safely when they're done with.
Researchers at the University of Birmingham hope to be part of the solution, developing new ways to recycle used batteries. It comes as a £500,000 battery recycling centre is due to open near Birmingham in the autumn. Our environment correspondent Charlotte Cross reports.
In a secure chamber at the University of Birmingham, researchers are trying to find answers to a new but urgent question. What happens when an electric car battery reaches the end of its life? This is one current method of recycling known as shredding. The machine chews up the battery so the components can be separated out. But there are some issues.
Shredding and sorting is a good way of doing it, but we could do better. There you do get impurities mixed in, and you're not always able to recover every single one of the components, and you're not always able to recover the materials at a very high efficiency.
Rob is one of a team working across the University of Birmingham and the University of Leicester trying to find alternatives. One possibility is a process known as delamination.
We can disassemble the cell and then treat the individual foils separately, and then we can remove these powders and active materials from the outside of the foils, and then we can recycle these at a much higher purity, and we can be more efficient and more green and generally more responsible.
And that is a key issue. By 2030, the sale of new petrol and diesel cars will be banned, meaning the demand for electric cars and their batteries will only grow in the years to come.
Now, these tend to have a lifespan of between 10 to 15 years, and scientists want to find ways of extracting the rare and valuable metals used to make them, such as cobalt, lithium and nickel, so they can be recycled and used for the next generation of electric cars.
That requires less energy and inflicts less environmental damage than mining for the raw materials. And with plans for a battery gigafactory at Coventry Airport already approved, some companies see an opportunity for the region to become a leader in their recycling too. Waste firm Veolia is investing £500,000 for a dedicated new plant in Minworth on the outskirts of Birmingham.
Research shows that by the year 2040, there could be as much as 350,000 tonnes of end-of-life vehicle batteries in the UK alone that will need processing. So if you try to look at that in terms of something we can all envisage, that's maybe 300 lorry loads of batteries per week that need to be addressed.
It's due to open in September, and by 2025 it's hoped the new centre will process 20% of the UK's expired electric vehicle batteries. Meanwhile, researchers are also looking at ways to make recycling easier right from the start.
We've got to deal with the electric vehicle batteries of today, but also we can imagine electric vehicle batteries evolving into the future. So we're also looking at how you can design those batteries to be able to recycle them. Things like glues and adhesives are real problems to take apart. So how can we design batteries that can be more easily recycled?
Without recycling, mountains of toxic waste would build up quickly as the UK moves towards petrol-free transport. It's hoped research like this will mean that reducing carbon emissions today won't create a different problem to solve tomorrow. Charlotte Cross, ITV News, Birmingham.
Well, from electric car batteries to what's being done to make buildings more climate friendly, because they account for 1/4 of greenhouse emissions.
It's another area being looked at as part of our efforts to tackle climate change and to meet the country's target to be net zero carbon by 2050. And that's when the amount of greenhouse gases we add is no more than the amount taken away. Kevin Ashford explains.
It might not look like the front line of the battle against climate change, but it's projects like this renovation work on these 100-year-old houses that could have a big impact. Among the improvements being carried out is insulation, making the homes more energy efficient and cheaper to run.
I'll say it has been a much better. Inside is more warmer than when I came in. It was really cold and all that. Since they did the work, they changed everything, the door, the windows. I spent less in heating the house.
The government may have set a 2050 target for being net zero, but some councils are aiming to get there earlier. In Shropshire's case, by 2030.
The main obstacles are financial and convincing people, ourselves and partners, to meet those targets. The retrofitting of the buildings is very important. We do lose a lot of emissions through old buildings. In Shropshire and other rural counties, there's obviously a lot of older buildings, some of which haven't got linked up to the gas grid. So it's important that we do as much as we can, particularly for those low family incomes who need to make the savings.
Buildings are directly responsible for 25% of the UK's total greenhouse gas emissions. So getting to the net zero target across the country, some 30 million buildings are going to have to be renovated to make them climate friendly. It's estimated that will involve, on average, retrofitting 1.8 homes per minute over the next 25 years, with improvements like insulation and more efficient heating. It's a task that won't come cheap. Some estimates put the cost at £500 billion over the next 20 to 30 years. However, those behind a new framework that's been drawn up to help measure the effects of renovations say there are benefits that need to be considered.
If we compare it against the cost to the NHS of poor housing, and that is estimated to be around 1.2 billion a year, just because people are living in damp homes or homes that are underheated. And if we compare it to the cost of households that are in fuel poverty, then these costs start to look better in terms of the value for money. So it's a policymaker's decision, but yeah, there's a lot of factors to take into account.
The body representing local authorities says it wants to work with the government and business to establish a national framework for addressing the climate emergency, supported with long-term funding. The government says it's pledged more than £1 billion to help councils tackle climate change. It's hoped by showing the benefits of such work, the new assessment framework will encourage more renovation projects in the future. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
Now, just before we get the weather, here's a story. If you fancy seeing a wallaby in the wild, your best bet might not necessarily be Australia, but a town in Warwickshire.
Never seen nothing like that in my life.
Yes, a rare white wallaby has been spotted a few times hopping through the fields of Kenilworth. Rubbish collectors from a local refuse company managed to film it while on their rounds. They say it's surreal seeing it on our shores.
It's quite amazing, isn't it? Quite beautiful as well. Yeah. Now, breeding colonies in this country are home to red-necked wallabies, but this one is pure white, and it's left lots of other locals excited about their special visitors. So much so, they've even affectionately named it Colin.
Why Colin?
I don't know, I would have gone with Holly.
Yeah. I bet it's jolly cold anyway.
Yeah, well, it's probably a boy, isn't it? Anyway, let's get the weather, shall we?
Phenomenal story, that is it. And wallabies come from Australia, of course. They like the warm conditions. So how that wallaby is going to cope over the course of tonight...
How about what?
I say how Colin is going to cope over the course of tonight. You never know, because temperatures are falling. Which reminds me, Christine Hall. Christine, yes, I did get your mail. Christine wants to find out, is it going to be frosty tonight? Because she doesn't quite know whether to cover the car windscreen or not, you know. So when she gets takes that screen off, she has to scrape the car windscreen. Christine, I'll tell you what, why don't I tell you during the weather forecast? You can have a listen and find out if it's going to be frosty where you live or not. What do you reckon? Or shall I tell her now?
I think it's going to be frosty.
It is going to be a little bit frosty.
It has been.
If you live in the more built-up areas, it's not. Temperatures are above freezing. Let's find out more, shall we, after this.
Making the most of it, whatever the weather. Octopus Energy sponsors ITV Central Weather.
Well, even though today was fairly cloudy, it wasn't too bad. It remained dry, which is always great news. Beautiful picture, actually. It's been sent in by Carol. Carol, thank you. Absolutely stunning picture. This next one has been sent in by Peter Steggles from Shropshire. Shropshire, back in the medieval times, was actually involved in a power struggle between the Earls of March and the Marcher Lords, can you believe? So, looking forward to our weather story. Well, we do see a change once you get into Wednesday day proper. I think Wednesday starts off fairly cloudy, but then we have this system moving in from the northwest. You can actually see it's a cold front coming in from the northwest. We're going to see a squeeze on the isobars indicated by your wind arrows there, and a change in direction of wind as well, coming up from the southwest, which is a much warmer part of the world. So yes, temperatures are set to climb, and that's aided with the wind breaking up the skies, breaking up the clouds, so a little bit more in the way of sunshine. So on to the weather story for tonight, and that cloud is still there. Temperatures underneath that cloud are really trapped. They're stagnant, feeling very chilly, only dipping down to around 1, maybe 3 degrees, so maybe just a touch of frost in the more rural spots. But again, it's a dry night. And then we wake up tomorrow morning. Yes, it's an overcast look. It's a cloudy look. By the time we get to midday, we'll start seeing that sunshine come through, and we end the day on a much drier and brighter note. A breezy day. I think we'll see gusts of around 15 miles an hour as temperatures climb to a wonderful 9 degrees. That's above the average for the time of year. I'm going to leave you with the summary and the great news about heading towards the end of the week. If you love warmer temperatures, well, that's exactly what we've got.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV Central Weather.
Still pretty nippy for Colin the Wallaby, isn't it?
Yes, or Holly Wallaby, as we've named it now.
Holly
Wallaby.
Holly Wallaby. Hey, I like that.
Anyway, time for us to hop off. Boom, boom. The ITV Evening News coming up. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.